Welcome, everybody, to another episode of an Issuer Update as part of this year's Summit on Responsible Investment. Today, I am pleased to be joined by Nick Kadysh, who is the CEO of PharmAla, a listed company on Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol MDMA. Nick, welcome to the show. I've eagerly been anticipating our conversation to talk about PharmAla Biotech Holdings and some of the work you guys are doing. So without further ado, maybe let the viewers know, just in general terms, what you guys are doing at PharmAla. It's quite the story.
Thanks. Listen, my pleasure to be here. Our ticker symbol is MDMA, which is very apt because that is what we do. So PharmAla is currently the world's only commercial supplier of clinical grade MDMA for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. So we sell MDMA to doctors and patients in both Canada and Australia. Those are the two countries where you're able to prescribe MDMA through various legal regulatory pathways. Then we supply clinical trials all over the world that are studying MDMA. For all kinds of indications, not just PTSD. And then the third thing we do is we develop our own patented novel analogs and molecules that are, derivatives of MDMA and related to MDMA, but have like other benefits or effects. So we are both a manufacturer of a commercial drug and a researcher and developer, a drug developer.
Awesome. So again, the reason you're on the Summit for Responsible Investment is I think there's a huge social aspect to what it is you're doing. I mean, you mentioned PTSD as is one of the problems you're trying to help solve or at least address through. Yeah. So maybe just talk a bit more about this MDMA-assisted therapy, really how it works, and also the success you're having from your client's perspective. What are they going through here?
For sure. So PTSD is really hard to treat. I think sort of the best-in-class treatments for PTSD, as with a lot of psychiatric disorders, is about 30%. So really what we do is we put you in therapy and hopefully we give you antidepressants. Maybe we give you like cannabis to sort of take the edge off. But, either the therapy helps or it doesn't. And in 70% of cases, it doesn't. What a lot of people don't know is that MDMA, while it is like a drug of abuse, yes, people are using it to party, but for about 30 years, it's been researched as a potential treatment for PTSD, and the results are nothing less than spectacular. So 2 phase 3 clinical trials have been completed. They've been published in Nature. Those are done by an organization called MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. And in those trials, they found that 70% of patients, basically after 3 months of therapy, no longer have PTSD. It's like a cure. And these are hard cases. These are people who've tried other treatments before and no luck. So the results have been pretty spectacular. Because we're the only company that's actually treating patients today in the real world, outside of clinical trials, I can say with all honesty that we've seen very, very similar results in the real world, which is amazing. So one of our customers, Emeria, which is an Australian firm, recently released their first sort of tranche of data, real world evidence of 8 patients. And what they saw is after 3 months, people actually continue to get even better after they're done treatment after 3 months. So pretty remarkable stuff.
Right. So do you go through this treatment process once, or is this an ongoing sort of treatment that you have to continue?
3 months and you're done. It's just 3 months. So it's not like a once a day pill. It's MDMA assisted therapy. So you never actually you go into the therapist's office, you take the MDMA, and then you go through therapy while you're under the influence of MDMA. But MDMA happens to be sort of like the perfect drug to treat this one specific disorder. And it works remarkably well.
And so foreseeing that phase 3, what gets you through to completion of the phase trials and then to executing a true go-to-market strategy with this drug?
So we're actually opening new markets all the time. So we opened the Australian market 2 years ago. Obviously, we're here in Canada. So we're, our strategy internally on the generic MDMA is we are just, we're opening markets as they open. We push a little bit, but we don't try to sort of bust through the wall with our foreheads. We let regulators take the lead. We are trying to grow our current markets in Australia and Canada as much as possible. And certainly there's a lot of need and a lot of patients that need help there. So that's a big focus for us. And then just continue to supply clinical trials. Eventually, the base of clinical evidence becomes so overwhelming that it's very, very hard for regulators to say no. And that's our strategy on the generic MDMA side. For the novel molecule molecules that we're developing, we are, we're actively working towards clinical trials for those molecules, but those are ones that we have patents on that we own, whereas MDMA is generic.
Right. So maybe talk a bit more about, is that like Lenio? Is that one of the products you've mentioned in your?
Lenio is our MDMA product. That's our generic MDMA product. That's right.
That's for generic. So talk about novel for a second. What's sort of
Of
the difference there, and what are you guys working on in that context?
So we have a number of new molecules, and I will actually just give a lot of credit to our research team. So PharmAla has become really, really adept at developing novel molecules in this specific space. We're highly specialized, but we can take. So we have what's called a QSAR model, which is like a receptor binding model for your neurons in your brain, focusing in on the specific the specific receptors that MDMA-like molecules target. And then we have an AI model to figure out if we can make it in the real world, because manufacturing these molecules is sometimes a challenge. And then we have an animal lab at the University of Arkansas, Professor Bill Fantagrossi's lab down there. So in about 6 months, we can go from idea to development to manufacturing to getting it into rodents and beginning to build that like toxicological data set. And so our lead molecule, ALA02, this is a patented analog of MDMA. It's better on toxicology, cardiotox, hyperthermia, some of the major adverse events of MDMA. And we have a partnership with the University of Sydney in Australia to do a phase 2 clinical trial. And we are just trying to get some financing in place for that trial. We closed a small tranche of financing in December, but clinical trials are expensive, and we try to do things as cheaply as possible, to be honest with you. So looking for the right partner to invest in that trial.
Yeah, no, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You mentioned artificial intelligence and keeping costs down. So obviously there's an analog there. Maybe just talk a bit more about how, AI is helping in the drug discovery and phase trialing pathway for you guys. So people can understand that, there's clear utility here in using AI in this.
Yeah. I mean, look, one of the best use cases for AI is you develop these molecules, right? And they're sitting on a whiteboard somewhere. You've drawn them out. In the past, what would happen is you would then go out and go to a wet chemistry lab and say, like, make it. Just figure out how to make it. And you would try, and oftentimes you would fail because a lot of the things that sound good and look good when you're drawing it on a board, you can't actually physically make it. Like the laws of chemistry will not permit it. And so prior to sort of the advent of sort of the computational AI models that we use, you would just have to physically try, and that's a very costly process. You use reagents, you use people's time, you have a chemistry lab that you need to sort of work at, and you need to have very creative chemists to sort of configure this out, medical chemists. Now what we do is we basically say to the AI, hey, can you tell me if you can make this? And know it, like sort of with the full body of chemistry knowledge at their disposal. Some of these AI models, now they're very highly specialized AI models for chemistry, but some of them can basically give you an answer. So it definitely saves a lot of time and energy and money.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you mentioned partnerships. So especially specifically in Australia, joint venture with Cortexa. Maybe just talk a bit more. How did that relationship strike up, and really maybe some of the differences of, the Australian drug pathway versus maybe North America, and some of the similarities that we can relate back to the viewers.
So the story on Australia is in 2023, so 2 years ago, in February, there was an announcement made that Australia would basically allow for MDMA-assisted therapy for post-traumatic stress based on all of these clinical trials that we talked about. And it really came out of the blue. But we moved very quickly. Like we're a small team, we're a nimble team. We were there 6 weeks later, we're on the ground in Australia meeting with partners, and we ended up partnering with a company called Vitura. At the time, they were the number one medical cannabis firm in Australia. In Australia, there is no recreational cannabis, unlike Canada. So it's very much, they were a great partner. They continue to be a great partner. And so we put together Cortexa, which is our joint venture down there. That's the organization that does all the MDMA supply for the Australian sort of continent. And in terms of the differences between their approvals and ours, basically the crux of it is, in Canada, we approve individual patients. So Health Canada looks at a patient's file and says yes to you, no to you. In Australia, they approve doctors. So you, as a psychiatrist, get approved to prescribe, and once you're approved by the TGA, which is the regulator, and the Royal Australian College of Psychiatry, Australia New Zealand College of Psychiatry, once they approve you, you can write as many scripts as you want. And obviously, in terms of what I believe is the better regulatory strategy, I think the Australian one is better because I don't love the idea of sort of unelected bureaucrats being between doctors and patients. It's not the best.
Understood. Let's just take a quick step back. What brought you to this type of business, and what drives you through this business? What keeps you passionate? Because we know as entrepreneurs, every day is different. It's always, some days are harder than others, and there's always a central mission or vision usually that drives people like yourself to pursue these businesses, because there's good and bad markets as well. And just curious from your perspective, what keeps you motivated to pursue this mission that you've on?
Well, look, I will say, you talked about good and bad times. Being a biotech company right now, I think we're at like the sort of the lowest point. Like the XBI, which is the biotech index, is like maybe at the lowest point in like human history. So talk about highs and lows. And we've done very well, all things considered. We didn't raise a lot of capital, and we've built a revenue generating successful business. We've been growing at like 100% a year for the last 2 years, trying to make it 3 this year. And in 2023, when we opened the Australian market, we were actually the number 1 growth stock in Canada. So like we've done very, very well, regardless of sort of the market conditions. But no, look, you talk about social impact. I tell this story a lot, but I'll tell it again because I never get tired of it. The first guy to ever get approved in Canada for MDMA-assisted therapy, after he did his first treatment, he reached out to us and said, like, I got to talk to you, Nick. I got to talk to you and tell you how it went. Now, as a pharmaceutical manufacturer, you really don't want to talk to patients. Everything they say to you has to be kept in like this black box of patient information, And so I was very hesitant, but he was very insistent. And so we get on the phone, and I got to be honest, I was very afraid. I was afraid this guy's going to say like, your drug did nothing for me. It was all crap, and he said, like, the words he used was, you gave me back a piece of my soul that I thought was gone forever. And I'm not all the way better yet, but I'm way better than I was before. And and I know that I'll be even better after the second treatment and the third. And funny enough, but that's exactly what we see in the data, across the patient cohort. And so, what better thing can you imagine than that to get you up in the morning? I mean, that's just it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all known people who've been through stuff that they can't get through on their own, and they need help. And
Totally.
This is another avenue for sure. As best as you can relay, I mean, what do you have in mind for the rest of the year? And I should note that we are recording this and actually going to have this air and debut during Mental Health Awareness Week. So I just wanted to make that
awesome.
known. But looking ahead for the rest of the year, Nick, what are some of the milestones you're seeking to achieve or working towards that you can share?
Yeah. So look, number 1, this year we opened a new market for us, which is the European Union. So we signed our first exclusive distribution partnership in Europe. That's with a company called Ducefa Pharma in the Netherlands. The Netherlands we see as a very viable sort of market for MDMA, because a state commission in the Netherlands has already strongly recommended legalization of MDMA for medical purposes. So that's in the rear view mirror, but we are always looking to open new markets. Our pace that we like to set is at least 1 per year new market. So we have a couple of others that we're looking at. Hope to be able to share news soon, but of course this is all at the discretion of regulators. So I never pre-announce anything on that front. The other big thing that we're looking at is developing new tools for doctors and patients to access these therapies here in Canada. So in Canada, we developed the prescribers portal. This is to help the doctors fill out the Health Canada paperwork that they need to get this medication to their patients. We're also looking to partner with an organization to launch the first continuing medical education program. So that will, additional information for doctors, give them comfort that they can prescribe this medication in Canada. And then just continue to drive forward on research. So we've announced a couple of really big partnerships this year, including we're going to be the first company to actually provide MDMA to the U.S. military to do a
wow.
clinical trial. So I never thought I would string the following words together, but we are going to be selling MDMA to the U.S. military.
Yeah, well, I mean, the military is a clear and obvious customer in Veterans Affairs,
Exactly.
no doubt.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah,
this is for active duty military personnel with PTSD. So
yeah,
it is a clinical trial, of course, but really amazing and interesting work that they're going to be doing.
that's amazing. Personally, that's amazing. My father was in the military, and I can attest to the fact that you meet people. They've been through a lot of stuff, and they certainly they need help during and after their careers of service. Nick, just for those following the story, where do you want to direct them to as things continue to roll out for you guys?
Yeah, well, obviously to the CSE, where we trade under the ticker symbol MDMA. Our website is www.pharmala.ca, and we're pretty active on social as well. So follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn.
That's fantastic. Nick, thanks so much for your time today. And for those watching, this was the CSE's issuer update, but also a part of our summit on responsible investment. And as mentioned earlier, this is being rolled out during Mental Health Awareness Week as well. So a lot of great resources shared today, Nick. And thanks again, and best of luck to you in your endeavor.
Thanks so much for having me.